Welcome back to my channel. I'm Traben, and in today's video, we're going to kick off week 1 of Epic Series Summer. Epic Series Summer is something I teased back in, I want to say, maybe March or April. This is going to be a series of vlogs where I try to go through and finish up my longer running Epic series that I am behind on. Currently, I'm conceiving this as about a 5-week endeavor, but we have an awful lot of books to get through, so we'll see how it goes. I might end up extending it. The first series I'm going to dive into is going to be the Dresden Files series. This is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. I have read through 15 of the books, but since I last marathoned them, 2 books have been released, as well as a set of short stories. I only plan for this vlog to read through the mainline series. I might go back and read the short stories if I have time, but because of all the other series I want to pick up, I'm not sure if that's going to be possible. I'm picking up Dresden Files with book 7, Deadbeat, because this is where I last stopped on my most recent reread of the series. Deadbeat is one of my favorite books in the series. In fact, this is the one I took and got signed by Jim Butcher, so it'll also help encourage me to jump back into it. There's just something I really enjoy about the urban fantasy setting and the slow progression of the character of Harry Dresden over the series. He starts off being tackling low-level wizards, and he gets up to the point where he is rivaling very big players in the world. Throughout it, there is a rich sense of world building, but also a progressive sense, and each book, at least early on, focuses on a different type of magic. So you had wizardry in the first one, you had werewolves in the second. We've had books that focus on vampires, we have books that focus on the Fae. This one in particular focuses on necromancy, and the things that end up happening in here are pretty crazy. Very much looking forward to this one, and that is why it's one of the first series I'm going to tackle. The second series I'm going to tackle is actually a shorter one. It's only a 3-book series, but it's one that I've read the first 2 books and then for some reason never picked up the third, and that is the Prospero War trilogy by J. Wells. I have Dirty Magic and Cursed Moon, and then the third book, Deadly Spells, I just never picked up. So I'm going to try to use this opportunity to give myself that push to get this series wrapped up, because from what I remember, this was a very engaging series. Another urban fantasy series, one where magic is basically a stand-in for drugs. I like the incorporation of the magic and the cost of magic, a lot of that discussion in this book, and a look at a world very much like our own, just shaped by different forces. So it's very fun, and I look forward to jumping back in and finishing this one up. I have 2 Sanderson series on this list because Sanderson is known for very good series and very epic series. First I want to talk about is the Stormlight Archives. So I have Edge Dancer here, which is the last book I've read in the series. This is book 2.5. I've read through The Way of Kings and I've read through Words of Radiance. I finished Edge Dancer recently. If you're not familiar with this series, it is very lengthy, 1,000+ page novels, vast world building, multiple characters, multiple POVs, but every book kind of has a focus for that title. So book 1, The Way of Kings, focused on Kaladin. I didn't really like Kaladin. Come at me in the comments. The second book, Words of Radiance, focused on Shallan, who is my favorite character so far in the book. So when I finished book 1 and I wasn't really feeling it, I was like, I'll read book 2. I've heard that Shallan's the main focus there, and if I'm on board at the end of that, then I'm going to get to the end of the series. This one has a little bit of a time crunch element to it as well, because book 5, so Oathbreaker's out, and then after Oathbreaker, there's Dawnbringer, I think, is the next novella. I've got it up on my shelf. Dawnshard is the next novella after Oathbreaker, and then book 4 is The Rhythm of War, and book 5 is coming out this winter. So I really want to get caught up with the series so that I don't have a backlog and I can get to that new book right when it comes out. Second Sanderson series I'm going to be looking at is Mistborn Era 2. So the first book there is The Alloy of Law. And this is a continuation of the Mistborn world, just set in an industrial revolution type setting. So maybe think akin to steampunk. I'm not sure exactly how far it goes into that, but that was the vibe I was getting when I was first looking into the series many years ago. My avoidance of the series is actually kind of an odd thing. Because I enjoyed Mistborn so much and I thought it had such a good ending and was such a strong series overall, I was really reluctant to jump into a similar world or the same world and get comfortable with new characters. And I thought, moving forward to the Industrial Revolution age kind of seems odd. Now knowing that this all fits into the larger Cosmere, and of course Sanderson is one of my favorite writers. He's been hit or miss with endings. I think the series is now at least 4 books long, maybe 5 books, and so we'll have to see how it's going toward the end. But I felt like he did a great job with Mistborn, one of the best series I've read. So I definitely want to be picking this up. Only got book 1, so I'll have to pick up the rest of those as we go, but that's another one that I want to take a look at. Finally, we have the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks. I have read The Black Prism before, so I'll be rereading The Black Prism. I know there's at least 5 out. I don't know if that's the end of the series. I remember the magic in here being particularly fascinating, and also the relationship building, the character building was very strong. Honestly, a lot of this book in particular has escaped me over the years. It's been a good while since I've read this, and so I'm looking forward to jumping back in, reacquainting myself with this world and with these characters, and I'm really excited to continue this story because I do remember it being very strong. It's just my memory is terrible. This will be the last of the epic series that we'll be taking a look at. At my buddy's house today, trying to stay quiet. Mostly we watched Kamen Rider today, and sleeping on a fold-out mattress, but got about 30 minutes left of the Annihilation audiobook, and then I'm going to jump into Deadbeat. So hopefully I make some good progress tonight before tomorrow. So yeah, I was at my friend's house for a few days, and we were watching a bunch of Kamen Rider mostly. We watched Psycho Gorman, which I'm glad I watched, but I think I'm only going to watch it the one time. I started reading Dresden Files, and then I'm about halfway home now, and I've gotten about 2 hours into the audiobook for Dirty Magic, which is the first book in the Prospero War trilogy. And so that's about a fifth of the way through, I think. I'll probably get another 2 hours in. So far it's going well. I have it on quite fast speed. I've got it 1.75 because it's already a book I've read before. So I'm not as stressed if I don't get every single detail. So that's where I'm currently at with the epic series reading. I didn't get as far as I wanted to in Dresden last night. I only got like 22 pages in. I finished chapter 1 and I was like, I'm done for now. I've got the stream tonight for This Person Should Not Exist, and then I should be able to get some more reading done in Dresden before tomorrow. I would like to try to wrap up that book by the end of the day Sunday, so I can get a couple of these books under my belt for this first vlog. It's the Sunday before the week I want to post this, so go up on Tuesday. And I've been sitting here crunching some numbers, trying to figure out how much trouble I'm in, because this first week has not gone great. Only a little bit into chapter 1 for the Dresden Files. I've done much better with Dirty Magic, so I've been listening to the audiobook, currently at 50% of the way through the book. Another 5 hours on this one, which I'm listening at like 1.5 to 1.75 speed, so not outside the realm of possibility that I finish before the end of the day tomorrow, but with the amount of books I'm reading, I figured out I have to, if I'm doing this for 5 weeks, I have to read 5 of these books a week, and that's a pretty tall order. There was a time in my life where I could have read through a Dresden Files book in a day easy, but time is kind of at a premium right now, even in the summer, because my days are filled with parental responsibilities at the moment. I'm really going to knuckle down tomorrow and focus and see if I can get through the Dresden Files book and see how far I can get into the Dirty Magic, and I'll be back with an update then. A little bit disheartened, but hopeful that I'll be able to pick it up this next week. So it is very, very late Monday night. This is the time that I can find to read. This will be a quick update on Dirty Magic and Deadbeat. For Dirty Magic, I did finish the audiobook. I finished it up and I was thinking about rating for it, and I was thinking probably it wasn't a 5-star read, probably a 4-star read. And I went on to Goodreads, and my previous rating from I think back in college was a 4-star read, so it's nice to see that things stay consistent. It's a good read, it's a good book. Falls a little bit too much into that idea that we have to have like cussing and violence and things like that to be considered adult. It does end the investigation that is started in the book and then hint at a larger problem that is going to continue on in the second and third book. This one did really feel fully realized in its planning for not only this being a satisfying book, but it working into a larger narrative that's going to span the other two books. For the most part, I liked the characters in this one. I thought that the relationships in particular added a good amount of complication and all felt very grounded and realistic. Very complicated webs of interpersonal relationships that are leading to a lot of the problems that the protagonist Kate is having to overcome. Biggest thing that stood out to me is they make a really big deal when Kate gets on this special task force that the person leading the task force is like, we do things by the book and we don't need someone who's going to go out of control, and I know your file says that like you don't play by the rules. And then we have a scene where exactly the opposite thing is happening, where the people who are on this task force, including the woman who was saying that she does everything by the book, are doing things that are super illegal to get information. And Kate's sitting there like, man, I'm really uncomfortable about this. We really shouldn't be doing this. It seemed like a bit of mischaracterization in an effort for you to further sympathize with the character. A good book to take a look at if you are interested in urban fantasy. The audiobook for book 2 is still a 2-week wait away, so I might start the next one physical until that's available. Made a good bit of progress on Deadbeat. I am on page 285 right now, and I'll probably get a little bit more read before bed, but man, going back through this is really reminding me why this title in particular stood out to me so much. You have not the introduction of Kumori and Cal, but a much more prominent feature of them. It's mentioned that they were in a previous book in a very important moment. You've got all the stuff with Sheila in here and the complications that that leads to. You have several plot points from previous books referenced and used to further the plot in one way or the other. And that is something that really struck me jumping in the middle of this series. I really do appreciate the way that Butcher is able to balance these references to previous titles in ways to at some points set up the main plot for this book, at other points to give characters motivation to help Dresden or to help reintroduce characters and remind you like, oh yeah, there was this thing that happened before that these characters were involved in. So I feel even if you weren't reading the series as a whole, or even if you're jumping in just to read a single title, it does a good job of trying to catch you up and using these quick blurbs of like, oh, I last saw this person 2 years ago when this happened, to remind you of that continuity that's been built up to this point, and I really did appreciate that. I have hit a rhythm now where I am reading, I think, a lot faster than when I first started up. I do think it was a little bit of a curve to get back into, okay, what had happened so far, what part of the story are we at, to get through that exposition. But now that we have, I think it's reading a lot quicker than it was when I first started up. It's still fun to remember the direction it's heading and to try to catch hints at future events. This book also has one of my favorite quotes that I have not gotten to yet, and so we'll probably cover that next week. Next week we will be looking at continuing the Dresden Files, continuing Prospero War. Friday is the beginning of Summerween, so I have a whole other set of titles that I'm going to want to read for that readathon that are going to take time away from getting these books done. So I'm going to try between now and Friday to really make sure that I get through a few of these titles, so I have some things to talk to you guys about next week. That's it for the first video of Epic Series Summer. I hope you enjoyed my trip down memory lane this time, these rereads. I feel like I reread books very rarely, and it is fun to go back and revisit these titles and remind myself why I enjoyed them so much. I hope your reading journey is going well as always. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help us grow this corner of our BookTube community. And until the next one, take care. What's the second Stormlight Archives book? It's literally right over here, but I thought talking to you would be faster. Words of Radiance. Okay, thank you.